Hello from Halifax. This is Jo with Jo to the World Creations, and today we're going to be making my beautiful baby blanket crochet pattern. I am beyond excited to share this very easy crochet baby blanket pattern with you, and we're going to be getting right to the video tutorial. All of the details, such as how much yarn you'll need, what hook size to use, as well as the step-by-step written instructions, are all available for free on my website, or you can purchase the print-ready, ad-free PDF, and there are links to both in the description below this video. All right, let's get started. Just a quick note that for this video tutorial, I'm going to be using this size 3 yarn, and this is Patons Astra in the color Hot Lilac, but you can see the exact yarn that I used that you'll see in all the pictures in the written instructions. So we're going to start by making a slip knot. There's lots of different ways to making a slip knot. I make a loop, pull my loop through, and place it on my hook, and then pull tight. Now we're going to chain 119. So we're simply going to make 119 starting chains, which creates a blanket that is approximately 33 inches wide, but that is with the border, and that's approximately 30 inches wide without the border. You're welcome to adjust the size by making more or less starting chains in multiples of 6 plus 5. For this video tutorial, I'm going to just make a small swatch, but if you're making the full blanket, you go ahead and chain 119 and come back to the video tutorial. With our starting chains now made, we'll begin row 1. And for row 1, the first thing we're going to do is work into the second chain from the hook. So this is the first chain, this is the second chain, and into that second chain from the hook, we're going to single crochet. But we're actually going to work into the back ridge loops, which are these bumps along the back. So in the second bump from the hook, we are going to single crochet. And then we're going to work into the back ridge loops or the back bumps all the way across. So for each chain working into the back ridge loops, we're going to single crochet. So we're going to make one single crochet into the back ridge loops all the way across. So you can go ahead, put me on pause, and come back to the video when you have single crocheted all the way across. So I'm nearing the end of row 1. I have 2 chains left to work into, so I'm just going to show you how I finish the row. Nothing special happens, but this last chain can be a little tricky to see just because it's attached to the slip knot, but there's still a back ridge loop, and still work into that as your final stitch of the row. So at the end of row 1, you should have 118 single crochet stitches complete. Now we're going to start row 2. To start row 2, we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to turn our work just like we're flipping a page in the book. We're going to work into the very first stitch, the stitch that's attached to that chain 3 that we just made. And into this first stitch, we're going to make 2 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, bring that yarn through 2 loops on your hook, 2 loops left, yarn over, bring that yarn through the last 2 loops. That's our first double crochet stitch, and we're going to do one more in the same stitch. So make another double crochet stitch into that same first stitch. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip the next stitch and skip the stitch after that. So you're skipping 2 stitches and working into the following stitch, we're going to single crochet. So just make 1 single crochet stitch in that following stitch. Now we're going to start the repeat portion of the row, and this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of the row. The first part of the repeat is to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip the next stitch and the stitch after that. So we're skipping 2 stitches. Working into the following stitch, we're going to make 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So skip 2 stitches in the following stitch, make 4 double crochet stitches in the same stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next part of the repeat is to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip the next stitch, skip the next stitch, and in the following stitch, we're going to single crochet. 1 single crochet stitch. And that's what we're going to be repeating all the way across the row. So let's do this one more time together. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. In the following stitch, make 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So I've just made 1, making my second double crochet stitch in the same stitch, make my third, and now my 4th and final double crochet stitch into the same stitch. Then I skip the next 2 stitches, and in the next stitch or the following stitch, after skipping 2 stitches, I'm going to single crochet. So you go ahead and repeat that all the way across the row, and come back to the video when you're nearing the end of the row. Nothing special happens. You're just going to repeat that all the way across, but we will finish the row together. So I'm nearing the end of the row. I've just made 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So I'm still following the repeat, and the instructions in the repeat say that after making 4 double crochet stitches in the same stitch, we skip 2 stitches and then single crochet in the next stitch. So your last stitch in this row will be a single crochet stitch in the last stitch. So into that last stitch, make a single crochet stitch. In this pattern, the chain stitches that we make at the beginning of the rows do not count as stitches. So when we're counting our stitches, we're only counting the double crochet stitches and the single crochet stitches all the way across, not counting that chain or the chain 3 that we made. At the end of row 2, you should have a total of 98 stitches. Now let's start row 3. So to start row 3, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to turn our work. In the very first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain 3 that we just made, we're going to make 2 double crochet stitches into the first stitch. So make 1 double crochet stitch, and into the very same stitch, make another double crochet stitch. So we have 2 double crochet stitches in the first stitch. The next thing we're going to do, and I'm just moving my yarn out of the way so you can really clearly see what we're about to do here. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So we're not going to work into the top of the first double crochet stitch from the previous row or the second. We're not working into those. We're actually going to work into the space in between the second and third double crochet stitch from the previous row, and we're going to work right into this space here. not into the tops of stitches for this part of the pattern. We're going to insert our hook directly into the space and single crochet. And this step here is the first part of the repeat that we'll be repeating for the rest of the row. So this is the first step, is to insert our hook in between the second and third double crochet stitch from the row below and single crochet. So once again, ignore the first double crochet stitch, ignore the second, and don't work into the top of the third. Instead, insert your hook in between the second and third double crochet stitch and single crochet. So we're skipping the next stitch, skipping the stitch after that, and then beginning our repeat. We're inserting our hook into the space between the second and third double crochet stitch, and we're just going to single crochet normally. The next part of the repeat is to skip the next 2 stitches, which means we're not going to work into the third double crochet stitch from the row below or the fourth. So we're skipping over the next 2 stitches. The next stitch we'll work into is the top of the single crochet stitch from the row below. And into this single crochet stitch, we're going to make 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. So we've just made a single crochet stitch in between the second and third double crochet stitches from the row below. Now we're skipping the third double crochet stitch, we're skipping the fourth, so not working into those, working directly into the top of the single crochet stitch. We're going to make 4 double crochet stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the final part of the repeat is to skip the next 2 stitches. So that means we're now working into those 4 double crochet stitches that we did in the row below. And so when it says to skip the next 2 stitches, we skip the first of the 4 and we skip the second of the 4. And now we're going to start that repeat all over again. So if you can recall, the first part of the repeat was to single crochet in between the second and third double crochet stitches from the row below into the space between, not the tops, into the space. So that's the first thing we're going to do as we do this repeat. I'm going to do it with you one more time. So this is what you're going to be doing all across the row. First step, single crochet in between the second and third double crochet stitches, simply single crochet. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip the top of the third, skip the top of the fourth double crochet stitch, and working into the single crochet stitch from the previous row, we're going to make 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. And in this one, we just work regularly into the top of this stitch. So this is my third double crochet stitch in the same stitch and my fourth. And then the final step of the repeat is to skip the next 2 stitches. So you go ahead and do this all the way across. I'm gonna show you actually. I'm gonna keep going so you can see what's going to happen at the end of this row. So I've just done the repeat twice. I can do it one more time here. But you'll have more repeats to do because you'll be doing this all the way across. But I'll just show you exactly how I'm gonna finish the row here. So I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches in between the second and third double crochet stitch into the space. I make a single crochet stitch. I skip the next 2 stitches into the single crochet stitch. I make 4 double crochet stitches into the same stitch here. That's 3 and 4. And then skip the next 2 stitches. What we're going to do at the very end of this row is we are going to make our last stitch in between the turning chain where we chained 3 and the last double crochet stitch. We're going to work into the space between, and into this space we're going to single crochet. So we've already skipped the last 2 stitches, and into this space here between the turning chain, the chain 3, and the last double crochet stitch, we're going to single crochet. And that completes row 3. At the end of row 3, you should have a total of 98 stitches. And just a reminder that this chain 3 never counts as a stitch. For row 4 and on, we're simply going to be repeating row 3. But let's do row 3 one more time really quickly. So to start row 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn. In the first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the chain 3, we're going to make 2 double crochet stitches in the same stitch. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, working in between the second and third double crochet stitches. From the row below, we're going to single crochet. Skip the next 2 stitches into the single crochet stitch. From the row below, we're going to make 4 double crochet stitches, and we just work regularly into the top of that single crochet stitch. And that is 4. And then skip the next 2 stitches. So we repeat from where we made that single crochet in between the second and third double crochet stitches from the row below. We skip 2 stitches, make 4 double crochet stitches into that single crochet stitch, and then skip 2 stitches. We repeat this all the way across. At the end of the row, after you've made your 4 double crochet stitches into the single crochet stitch, as per the repeat instructions, you skip the next 2 stitches. And then the final step in the row is to single crochet in between the chain 3 and the last double crochet stitch. Or you could call it the first double crochet stitch, but this working in between the double crochet stitch and the chain 3, we're going to single crochet. And that completes really what you're going to do for the rest of the blanket. You can repeat row 3 until your work measures 34 inches high, which is the size that I made my blanket. That is approximately 79 rows, or feel free to keep going until you reach your desired height. You can end the blanket body after any row. So once you've reached your desired height, do not fasten off. Come back to the video and we will do the border together. So now we're going to start the border. I'm going to pretend that this is the height that I'd like for my blanket. As I mentioned, you can end after any row. So my starting tail is on this side. If yours is on the other side, it's absolutely okay. If yours is on the other side, the exact look and where the stitches are might be slightly different, but that's okay. I'm going to show you step by step how to complete round 1 of the border. And the first thing we're going to do is chain 1. So right where we left off, we've just made a single crochet stitch in the space between the chain 3 and the last double crochet, and we're going to chain 1. But we're not going to turn. We are going to work down the side and then across the bottom and then up the side and across the top. But I'll be rotating the work, so it might not look like I'm working in that direction. That's exactly what I'm doing. Going down the side, across the bottom, up the side, and across the top. So the first thing we'll be doing is working down the side. And we're going to single crochet evenly down the side. And we're going to be working into the chain stitches. Remember how we made a chain 3 to start every row? And then we also made single crochet stitches to end every row. And we're going to be working directly into those stitches. I usually insert my hook under 1 loop, and where I'm going to show you how to single crochet down the side here, you don't need to find the exact place. I just want to try to help you because I know that this is probably the most difficult part. But what I really want to make sure is that you don't work into the space in between the chain 3 and then the first stitch. Don't insert your hook into here. We want to insert our hook into the actual chain or the single crochet stitches. Under 1 loop is fine, but you might find it's easier in some aspects to insert your hook under 2 loops. And that's fine too, but just don't work into the space, else I found there was a really big unwanted gap there. So what we're going to be doing is inserting a hook into the stitches and single crocheting evenly down the side. And I'll show you exactly how I've done it. And like I say, you don't need to do exactly what I'm doing here. There isn't an exact stitch count that you need to have down the side, but we just want to create a foundation round of single crochet stitches to help with the border. And I'll show you how to do it. Now my chain 1 just came out, so I'm not doing anything new. I'm just fixing that chain 1 that just came apart. All right, so now that I've chained 1 just once, we're going to work down the side. And what I found is that every time you see a chain 3, which is what every other, like not every other row, each row started with a chain 3, but as you work down the side, you'll see it. There's a chain 3, then a single crochet, a chain 3. And so what I found to get an even number of stitches down the side is to take this chain 3 and make a single crochet in the top of it and 1 single crochet stitch in the bottom of the chain 3. And where exactly you put it, it really doesn't matter. And then whenever you see a single crochet stitch, you're going to make 1 single crochet stitch into the end of that single crochet stitch. But this is just a general guide that anytime you see a chain 3, I'm going to make technically 2 single crochet stitches into it, but I'm going to make them in different places. So I'm treating this as the top half of the chain 3, and I'm just inserting my hook into whatever loop, whatever strand I can find that's into the stitch here, and then single crocheting into it. And then the bottom of this same chain 3, so it's a different place that I've inserted where I've made my first single crochet. Then I'm going to insert my hook under 1 loop or 1 strand and then single crochet. So I've made 2 single crochet stitches into that chain 3. And the next thing I see is a single crochet stitch. So I'm going to just insert my hook under 1 strand of this stitch and make 1 single crochet stitch. And you don't need to worry the exact place, like you don't need to find the exact strand I'm working into. This is just to help you get an even number of stitches all the way down. So just a little more, I have another chain 3 that I'm coming up on, so in the top half of it. And when I say top half, here's the chain 3. So this is the top half that I'm going to single crochet into, and here's the bottom half of it that I'm also going to single crochet into, but I'm making them in different locations, just so that we're getting an even number of single crochet stitches all the way down. So in the top half of this next chain 3, I'm going to single crochet, and in the bottom half, single crochet. I'm working into the stitches, not into the spaces in between where the stitches and the next space there. I'm working directly into the stitches. So inserting my hook under 1 or 2 loops and then single crocheting. So you can see here I'm having a nice even number of single crochet stitches all the way down. There's not too many in one place. They're not too stretched out. It's not pulling my work. That's the goal here, is just to have an even number all the way down. So I hope this helps you determine where to single crochet as you work down. Like I say, you don't need to do this in the exact location I am, but I found this should give you a nice even look, and then you'll do it on the other side as well, but we'll get there in a second. So I've single crocheted evenly all the way down, and I'm actually right now at the corner, so I'll just do this now. But go ahead and put me on pause if you need to, so you can single crochet evenly down the sides. Now, where you've identified the corner stitch, you feel free to find whatever you think is the most corner stitch, but I know I've had lots of questions about this in other patterns, so I just thought it would be easier to tell you where to make your corner stitch, but it's okay if you want to make it in a different location. But I made my corner stitch, the first corner stitch, in the first chain across the bottom. So I found that first chain, and into this first chain, I'm going to make 3 single crochet stitches into this first chain. So wherever you find your corner stitch, make 3 single crochet stitches into this corner stitch. For the chains, work under both loops, because when we started the pattern, we worked into the back ridge loops. So there'll be 2 loops to work into. So I've just made 3 single crochet stitches into this first chain along the bottom. And now I'm going to make 1 single crochet stitch in each chain across. Now these are a little tighter. Take your time and just make 1 single crochet stitch all across the bottom, and then come back to the video when you're nearing the end of the bottom, and we'll find that corner stitch together. So I just finished single crocheting all the way across in each chain across the bottom. I have 2 stitches left, or 2 chains left to work into, so I'm going to make my last single crochet across the bottom, and this is my last chain stitch here. So into this last chain, I'm going to make 3 single crochet stitches into the same chain and complete my second corner. So that's 2, and then there's 3 single crochet stitches into that final chain. Now I'm going to work up the side and do the exact same thing I did while we worked down the side. So working up the side, anytime I see a chain 3, I'm going to make a single crochet stitch in the bottom half and a single crochet stitch in the top half. And every time I see a single crochet stitch, I'll make 1 single crochet stitch into that. I found that the start of this can be a little tricky to see, but again, you don't need to do it exactly. We just want to make an even number of single crochet stitches all the way up, which means not making too many too close together and not making too many too far apart. So always working into the actual stitches, and they can be tight. We're making single crochets that are evenly spaced out all the way up. So you can go ahead and put me on pause, come back, and we will do the third corner together when we get to the top of this side. So I'm nearing the top of this side here, and I just wanted to point out where I'm going to make my third corner stitch. I'm going to make it into the very first stitch across the top. So I'm going to treat this first stitch as my corner stitch, and I do recommend you do the same because I have instructions for the top that will be easier to understand if this is the stitch you use as your corner. So I'm going to make one more single crochet stitch just into the stitches before the corner stitch, so it's nice and even here, and then into the top of the very first stitch. So this is the top of the first double crochet stitch across the top. I'm going to make 3 single crochet stitches into that, and that will be my third corner. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now across the top, we do need to do something a little different here, because if we just single crocheted in each stitch across, we're going to have less stitches on the top than we would on the bottom, because we single crocheted in each chain stitch in the bottom when we started the blanket, and then when we got to doing the actual pattern, we were skipping lots of stitches, and so this is not the same number of stitches, but we have an easy remedy of what we're going to do to fix this, to make sure the tops and bottom are even for the border. So we're going to single crochet in the tops of all the double crochet stitches. So every time we see a double crochet stitch, we're going to make 1 single crochet into it. And we're going in, whenever we see a single crochet stitch into the top of that single crochet stitch, we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches into each single crochet stitch. That might have sounded confusing or overwhelming. Don't worry, I'll walk you through step by step how to do this. So we just made our third corner stitch in the first double crochet stitch. So in the next stitch, which is the top of the next double crochet stitch here, we're going to single crochet. The next stitch that we come across is the top of the single crochet stitch. So we're going to make 2 single crochet stitches into that stitch. So 1 and 2. Then we're going to make a single crochet stitch in each of the next 4 stitches, because those are all tops of double crochet stitches. So over the next 4 stitches, we'll just make 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch. And after those, the next thing you'll see is a single crochet stitch. And in that single crochet stitch, we'll make 2 single crochet stitches, 1 and 2. So what we just did, making 2 single crochet stitches into the top of a single crochet stitch, is the first step of the repeat that we're going to do all the way across the top. So we made 2 single crochet stitches, and now we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 4 stitches. So 1 and just 1 single crochet stitch in each of the next 4 stitches, which are all tops of double crochet stitches. And then the repeat is to now repeat that, which is 2 double crochet stitches in the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet stitch in each of the next 4 stitches. And you'll do that all the way across. So once you've finished that repeat all the way across, your last stitch is going to be a single crochet stitch that you're going to work into. And this will be your fourth corner that you create. So in this last stitch, which is a single crochet stitch, you're going to make 3 single crochet stitches into this last stitch. And this is your 4th corner. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to skip over the chain 1 that we started the border round 1 with, and we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet stitch we made in the round. Slip stitch to join the round. And that completes round 1 of the border. To start border round 2, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to turn. We're going to skip over the first stitch. We're not going to work into the stitch that's attached to the chain. What we're going to be doing in this round is making double crochet stitches all the way around, except when we're at the corner of each of the 4 corners. Whenever we get to a corner, and the corner is the middle of the 3 single crochet stitches that we made in each corner in the previous round. So in the middle of those 3 single crochet stitches, we're going to be making 3 double crochet stitches into that middle stitch for all 4 corners. But for every other stitch, we'll just make 1 single crochet stitch. So skipping this first stitch, the next stitch we're going to double crochet stitch, or make a double crochet stitch, yeah. Now, my next stitch is my corner stitch. If yours is not your next stitch, it's okay. Just wherever your corner stitch is, you're going to make 3 double crochet stitches into this 1 corner stitch. So 1 double crochet, 2, and 3. So I've just made 3 double crochet stitches into this 1 corner stitch. With 3 double crochet stitches now made in the corner, I'm going to make 1 double crochet stitch in each stitch all the way across until I get to the next corner. And this is what we're going to do all the way around. Make 1 double crochet stitch in each stitch until you get to the middle of the 3 single crochet stitches. So in the middle stitch, make 3 double crochet stitches into that 1 stitch, and then 1 double crochet stitch in each other stitch until the next corner, and repeat this all the way around. And come back to the video when you're nearing the end and we will join this round together. So I'm nearing the end of border round 2. I have 2 stitches left to work into, so I'm just making double crochet stitch into each of the last 2 stitches. And then to complete the round, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet stitch made. So we're getting to the top of that first stitch, simply slip stitch. And that completes border round 2. To start border round 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to skip the first stitch, the stitch that's attached to that chain 1 we just made. And in the next stitch, we're going to do a V-stitch. And in this pattern, because V-stitches can vary in different patterns, in this pattern, what a V-stitch is a single crochet stitch followed by a chain 2 and a single crochet stitch into the same stitch. So once again, skip the stitch that's attached to the chain, working into the next stitch. Let's make our first V-stitch. So it's going to start off by making 1 single crochet stitch. That's my first single crochet stitch. Now I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. Now working into the exact same stitch, we're going to make another single crochet stitch. And that's our first V-stitch. Every time we make a chain 2, it's going to create a chain 2 space that we're going to work into on the following round. So that's just important to note so that you know next time, every time you've made a chain 2, we're going to be working directly under it in between the single crochet stitches. But that's just a note for the next round. But for this round, after making a V-stitch, we are going to skip the next stitch. And we're going to repeat V-stitch in the next stitch, skip the next stitch all the way to the corner. So let's just do a couple more. Skip the next stitch. In the next stitch, we're going to make another V-stitch. So single crochet, chain 2, and then single crochet. So we're going to repeat this all the way to the corner. V-stitch, skip a stitch, V-stitch, skip a stitch. And in this round, we're going to do something special. In the 3 corner stitches where we made the 3 double crochet stitches in the corner in the previous round. So go ahead and V-stitch and skip a stitch all the way until you're about a couple stitches away from the corner, and then we'll do that part together. So I'm approaching the corner, and as I just mentioned, we're going to be doing something in the top of the 3 corner stitches from the previous round. What we're going to be doing in each corner and in each of these 3 stitches is we're going to make a V-stitch in the tops of each of these 3 corner stitches. So unlike what we've done leading up to the corner where we've skipped a stitch after the V-stitch, we're now not going to skip a stitch for these 3 stitches. But the challenge is as you approach the corner, you might not have the right amount of stitches where you would skip a stitch before doing the corners, or you might have the right stitches. So there's 2 different scenarios. So the pattern so far has been V-stitch, skip a stitch, V-stitch, but then now we're suddenly going to be doing a V-stitch in the 3 corner stitches. What I want to share with you is that it doesn't matter if your stitch before the 3 corner stitches is a V-stitch or a skipped stitch. So don't worry. All you need to worry about is as soon as you get to the 3 corner stitches, you're going to V-stitch, 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 and then skip the next stitch. But as you approach the corner, it's okay if the stitch before is also a V-stitch. So you'd have 4 V-stitches in a row, and that's completely okay. Or if the stitch before doing 3 V-stitches in each corner stitch is a skip stitch, that's fine too. Both look absolutely fine. The goal is just to create more stitches in the corner so that it doesn't bunch up and be too tight. So I've just done a V-stitch here. I'm going to skip the next stitch. The next stitch is going to be a V-stitch, but if your pattern doesn't work out exactly like this, and this for you is a skip stitch, that's absolutely okay. So now in each of these 3 corner stitches, we are going to do a V-stitch. So just chain 2 and single crochet in each of the 3 corner stitches. And then this is my 3rd corner stitch, make my last V-stitch. And then we're always going to skip the next stitch after making those 3 V-stitches in each corner stitch. So now we're going to skip a stitch, and then in the next stitch, go back to the pattern of V-stitch, skip a stitch, V-stitch, skip a stitch. And you're going to do this all the way around. So just note that as you approach these 3 corner stitches from the previous round, the stitch before might be a skip stitch for you, or it might be a V-stitch, and whatever that is, it's absolutely okay. Just once you're in the corner, we're going to make a V-stitch in each corner stitch. Then skip the next stitch and repeat that all the way around. And your fourth corner here, you're going to do the exact same thing, and there should be enough space where you, after this corner, you skip the stitch here, and then we're going to join into the first single crochet that we made, as that's a part of the first V-stitch, but we can do that together. So you just repeat this all the way around and come back to the video and we'll join the round together. So I've just made 3 V-stitches in each of the 3 corner stitches on my last corner, and I can skip this last stitch here, and we're going to join by slip stitching into the top of the first single crochet stitch that was part of the first V-stitch that we made. So in the top of that first stitch, we're going to slip stitch to join the round. To start border round 4, we're going to chain 1 and turn. For this round, we are going to be working into the chain 2 spaces that were created every time we chain 2 as part of the V-stitch. So we're going to be working directly into these chain 2 spaces, not into the tops of stitches, directly into the chain 2 space. And in every chain 2 space here, we're going to make a V-stitch. The exception to that is we're going to do something a little different at the corners. But let's just do our first V-stitch into a chain 2 space. So I've chained 1 to start the round, working directly into the first chain 2 space, which is in between the 2 single crochet stitches under the chain 2. We're just going to make another V-stitch. So we're going to single crochet, chain 2, and then working directly back into that same chain 2 space, single crochet again. And that's a V-stitch that we've made in a chain 2 space. So we're going to be doing that all the way around in every chain 2 space except for the 4 corners. And in this round, the 4 corners means the chain 2 space that's closest to the corner. So right here, my next chain 2 space is actually going to be my corner space that we're going to do something a little different. And then after we do our little special corner stitch here, then everything else will just be a V-stitch into the chain 2 space until we get to the next corner, which this is just, you just eyeball it and you just see which chain 2 space is closest to the corner. So this is the chain 2 space that's closest to the corner here. So, but first let's talk about what we do at these corner chain 2 spaces. So I'm at the corner chain 2 space, and what we're going to do is it's very similar to a V-stitch. We're going to single crochet into the chain 2 space, and we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to make another single crochet into the same chain 2 space, and then we're going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and make another single crochet stitch into the same chain 2 corner space. So really what we're doing is we're creating 2 chain 2 spaces in each corner stitch that we'll work into in the next round. So at each corner, you're going to do that exact same thing. Single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet all into the same chain 2 corner space. Then in the very next chain 2 space, make that regular V-stitch and do that all the way across, V-stitch, 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 all the way until the next corner, which you just eyeball, pick the chain 2 space that's closest to the corner, and in this chain 2 space that's the corner, you're going to chain 2 or single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all in the same chain 2 space. So you're going to do that special corner stitch for all 4 corners. We just did the first one together. And then, but in every other chain 2 space, you're just making that regular V-stitch. And then come back to the video when you're getting close to the end of the round, and we will join the round together. After working all the way around, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet stitch made in the round, which was part of the first V-stitch. So into that top of that first stitch, we're just going to join with a slip stitch. And that completes border round 4. To start border round 5, we are going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to do almost the same thing that we did in the previous round. So in each chain 2 space, we're going to make a V-stitch. So simply make a V-stitch in each chain 2 space until we get to the corners. So except for the 4 corners, and I know you're probably saying, Jo, what are we doing in the corners this time? Well, this time in the corners, so we're going to be working into that special stitch that we made in the round before. So in that special corner stitch, we made, it was a stitch with 2 chain 2 spaces. So there's a chain 2 space here and a chain 2 space here. And these are the 2 spaces that we're going to be working into on the corners. So first of all, just in each chain 2 space until the corner, you're going to V-stitch, which is a single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. So do this all the way to the corner, and then we'll do the corner together. So I've just made a V-stitch in each chain 2 space all the way to the corner, and now I'm at the corner where, if you can recall, in the round before, we single crocheted, chain 2, single crocheted, chain 2, single crocheted, all in the same chain 2 space. We're going to be doing that exact special stitch, but we're going to do it once in the first chain 2 space of the corner. So right in this first chain 2 space, we're going to do that exact same stitch, and then we're going to do it again in the next chain 2 space in that's still part of this corner. So let's do this together. In the first of 2 chain 2 spaces in this corner here, we are going to single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in the same chain 2 space, then chain 2, and single crochet in the chain 2 space. And then you're going to do the exact same thing in the next chain 2 space. And then just make a regular V-stitch in all the other chain 2 spaces until you get to the next corner. And for all 4 corners, you'll do the same thing. In the first of 2 chain 2 spaces, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then repeat that exact same sequence in the next chain 2 space of the corner. And then go back to your regular V-stitches. And we're going to do that all the way around until you come back to the place that you've started. And we're going to join the same way we've been joining the whole time, which is making a slip stitch into the top of the first single crochet stitch made in the round. So you go ahead and do that and come back to the video, and we'll finish the round together. And after working all the way around, we are going to slip stitch in the top of the first single crochet stitch that we made in the round. And that completes border round 5. To start border round 6, which is the final round, we are going to chain 1 and turn. So for this round, this is the easiest round yet. We are going to make a V-stitch in each chain 2 space, including at the corners. Nothing special is going to happen at the corners. We're simply going to make a V-stitch in each chain 2 space, and at the corners you simply make a V-stitch in each chain 2 space. So you'll notice that there's 4 chain 2 spaces to work into at each corner. So you're just going to make 1 V-stitch in the first chain 2 space, and then find the second chain 2 space and work into that, just a regular V-stitch. And then you'll see a third chain 2 space, and then a fourth chain 2 space, and you just make just a single V-stitch in all of those chain 2 spaces, and then a V-stitch in each chain 2 space all the way around. Once you get back to the place that we've started, you're going to join the same way we've been joining every other round by slip stitching into the top of the first single crochet stitch made. And that is it. At that point, you'll fasten off and weave in all your loose ends, and you will have a brand new blanket. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed making this blanket. I would love to see what you made, and I'm here if there's anything I can do to help. Please let me know. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.